July of this year, near Kadoka in Jackson County, South Dakota, and the thermometer on the barn wall reads 109. In the feedlots along the highway, the big modern steers stand crowded under every scrap of shade, panting, gone off their grain, and 3 of them are down in the dust and will not get up. But out past the last fence, on the far dry hills where the grass is short and brown and nobody else will run stock, Ruth Ann Vollmer watches 62 small hard cattle string out and graze in the open sun like the heat is somebody else's problem. She holds her father's leather book against her chest, one finger marking a page. She does not smile. She does not say anything. For years, the men at the sale barn doctor for these cows and called them scrub stock. Delbert Hagen, the order buyer, laughed in her face over the ring and told her to breed them up or get out.
Warren Tolliver, who runs 300 head of the fashionable kind, 2 ranches over, called them her father's mistake. She would not sell them. She would not breed them up, and the bank in town has been circling her note all spring. So the question sits over that brown hill like the heat itself. What did the old man know about these homely little cows that made him keep the ones the whole county threw away? But to understand what she refused to give up, you have to go back. Back to 1991, to a kitchen table and a dying man's hand on that same book. If you have ever been told your idea was worthless, this story is for you. So take a second and subscribe. And tell us in the comments where you were watching from. The winter of 1991 came in hard and gray to the ranch south of Kadoka, and Otto Vollmer was dying at his own kitchen table. He was 68. His hands shook now, but they were steady on the cracked leather book he had kept since he was a young rancher, and he slid it across the oilcloth to his daughter. Ruth Ann was 28 then, back from town, back from a marriage that had not held. She opened the cover and found his small pencil hand, column after column, running back to 1954. A cow's number, the year, whether she raised a calf or came up empty. Some lines carried the same cow through 14 springs of drought and blizzard and grasshopper, and beside those he had bore down hard enough to dent the paper. "These ones stayed," he told her. "You never sell the ones that stay." She did not understand it yet. She took it for an old man's stubbornness about small, homely cattle the county had quit wanting. Out past the window, the herd stood in a ground blizzard with their backs to the wind, 40-odd cows, shaggy and short in the leg and calm, letting the snow drift off their hides. Otto watched them until he could not. He died in March before the grass came, and Ruth Ann buried him on the rise above the calving lot. She put the book in the kitchen drawer and left it shut. But the cows were hers now, and so was the note at the bank. And come the first sale of spring, so was every man at the ring with an opinion about what she ought to be running. The first sale of spring, 1992, and the sale barn at Phillip smelled of manure and cold coffee. Ruth Ann Vollmer stood at the back rail in her father's canvas coat while her first draft of yearlings went through the ring. The auctioneer's chant slowed. Delbert Hagen leaned into his microphone and let the room hear him. "Little Bitty thinks," he said, "somebody's 4-H project." The gavel came down 11 cents under the board. Warren Tolliver, 3 rows down with his boots on the rail, laughed and did not turn around. "Otto's scrub stock," he told the man beside him, loud enough. "Girl ought to sell the whole lot for hamburger and buy some real cattle."
A younger buyer named Curtis Pfeiffer, new to the barn, wrote something on his card and said nothing. Ruth Ann felt the heat climb her neck. She had the sale check folded in her coat, light as a leaf, and the banknote behind it heavier every month. She thought about what Tolliver ran 2 ranches over, the big framed calves, the grain trucks, the vet bills. She thought about the dented pages in the drawer at home. That night she sat at the kitchen table under the one bulb and opened the leather book to the back. She found a blank column, dated it, and began copying down the number of every cow she had left. 41 head, and beside each one, the same question her father had asked for 50 years. Did she raise a calf?
She meant to keep the answers herself now, in her own pencil hand, and she uncapped the pen and reached for the first cow's tag number, and the two big cream-colored bulls came off a trailer from Rapid City on a raw morning in 1994, and Ruth Ann Vollmer paid $1,100 a head she did not have. She had let the men at the ring get under her skin. If the county wanted frame and pounds, she would put frame and pounds in her own calves and quit taking the dock. She turned the bulls in with her small, hard cows and told herself Otto would have understood. The calves came the next spring, and they came too big. She spent nights in the calving lot in a wet coat with a chain and a puller, her arm in past the elbow, her breath white over a heaving cow. A short, deep cow her father had run for years, number 60, could not pass the calf that big bull had put in her. Ruth Ann pulled until the barn light swam and her shoulders gave out. The calf came dead. Number 60 lived, gaunt and hollowed, and she went dry and open that summer. By the end of June, she had pulled 4 calves off cows that had never in their lives needed a hand at the rail. 2 young cows tore inside and would not settle. The vet bill ran past everything the 2 bull calves might ever bring. She sat late at the kitchen table with the leather book open and made herself write it plain, the way Otto had written things. Big bull on a small cow. Heavy calf. Cow down. She did not dress it up or blame the weather. Under number 60, beside 31 straight springs of the same short word in her father's hand, raised, she set down the year and the one word that cow had never earned before. Empty. Rain missed the west pasture in April and again in May of 1995, and by mid-June Ruth Ann Vollmer knew she had left her cows on that section too long. She had stocked it the way her father had, 40 cow-calf pairs on the full section, because that was the number written in the leather book for that ground. Now she walked the fence line in the heat and saw bare dirt between the plants and the little white roots of the buffalo grass where the sod should have held. A pickup slowed on the county road and stopped. An old man in a straw hat climbed down, name of Emmett Kruger. He ran a small herd of the same short cattle 2 townships over, and he had known Otto since the 50s. He came through the wire and walked 100 paces with her without a word. Then he crouched and set his hand flat on the ground. Warm and dry an inch down. The book says 40 pair on a good year, he told her. This ain't a good year. Ruth Ann felt the shame come up her neck. She had counted the cows the way she counted the pages, straight across, as if the ground kept the same account every summer. Emmett stood and brushed his palm on his jeans. Take 10 pair off tomorrow. Home lot, hay ground, anywhere but here. Give this land the rest of the summer, or you'll feed hay in August that you don't have. She sold 10 young pairs cheap at Phillip that Thursday and swallowed the loss. That night she opened the leather book to the back and drew a second column beside her father's tally. Not just how many head. How many inches of rain had fallen by the 1st of June. She looked at the 2 columns in the yellow kitchen light and wondered how much of what Otto had known still lived only in his hands, and whether the country would give her years enough to learn it. Weaning morning came clear and cold in October of 1997, and Ruth Ann Vollmer ran her calves across the scale in the alley one at a time. She had rested the west section 2 summers and stocked it by the rain now, and the buffalo grass had come back thick to the fence. Her cows had raised their calves on that grass alone, no grain, no creep feeder, while 2 ranches over, the fashionable cattle were already eating hay in a green year. She wrote each weight in the leather book in pencil as the calves came off. Her small cows weaned at 540 pounds, lighter head for head than Warren Tolliver's big-framed steers. But she ran 52 pairs where he ran 30, on the same kind of gumbo ground. And when she did the arithmetic at the kitchen table that night, her total pounds weaned across the whole ranch stood ahead of his. Her uncle, Marlin Vollmer, had come out to help her sort. He was Otto's younger brother, 70 that fall, and he had run the same short cattle up near Interior for 40 years. He worked the gate while she pushed pairs up the alley, and once he stopped and leaned both forearms on the top rail and looked a long time down the row of deep-bodied cows, carrying fat on their backs with a calf at every flank.
"You matched the cow to the country," he said low. "That is the whole business." He did not say the cows looked good. He walked the length of the corral and set his elbows on the rail a second time at the far end, hat pushed back off his forehead, and stood there in the low, cold sun, watching a young cow turn and lick the calf at her side, saying not one word. Kadoka hit 107 degrees for the 4th straight day in August of 2002, and the air above the highway south of town had a shimmer to it that bent the fence posts into soft waves. Ruth Ann Vollmer stood in the barn lot at mid-morning and watched her cows. They had walked themselves in from the far hills before daylight, and now they stood in the thin shade of the windmill, their flanks barely moving. They were not panting hard. A few chewed their cud in the shadow of the tank wall. 2 miles east, Warren Tolliver's big-frame steers were not chewing anything. She had seen them that morning from the county road, bunched against the wire, mouths open, sides heaving in the heat. 3 had not risen when a truck slowed and honked. By afternoon, the word was moving along the gravel roads and through the grain elevator in town. Tolliver had lost 4 head to the heat by noon and called the renderer for a 5th. Her phone rang at 2 o'clock. The voice belonged to Dan Pelfrey at First National in Phillip. He was not unkind. He said the note on her operating loan came due at the end of September, and he had spent the morning with her sale records going back 3 years. Her average sale weight ran 60-70 pounds below county average every fall. He said the word exposure once in a careful voice, and then he said the bank would need to sit down with her before the fall sale. She held the receiver for a moment after the line went quiet. The balance on that note was $41,000. She had been paying it down for 10 years. She went to the kitchen table and opened the leather book to the back pages. The Phillip sale opened at 8 on a Thursday morning in the 3rd week of September of 2002. Ruth Ann Vollmer's calves came off the trailer in good flesh, every one of the 47 on their feet. Delbert had retired 2 years back, and his son Vince was calling now. Vince worked the ring with the same clipboard and the same flat expression his father had used, and when her first pen trotted in, he wrote the weight and looked up at her once across the ring without a word. Delbert stood halfway down the rail in a clean shirt, watching. He did not look away when she caught his eye. Her individual weights ran below county average, same as always. But she had put 47 calves on the scale from 48 cows for the driest summer the county had seen in 4 decades. The ranches running the fashionable cattle had averaged under 40% conception for the fall. An old rancher named Boyd Greer leaned over the rail before the bidding started and asked her how the small cows had managed the heat. She told him they had walked 4 miles out to the rough hills before sunup and grazed the country the bigger steers would not leave the shade to use and come back to water in the evening. Boyd Greer nodded slowly. "Short-legged horse. Works at noon when the tall ones quit. Vince called the bidding at 92 cents. He did not dock her for light weights. Delbert watched the number climb and said nothing to anyone. Dan Pelfrey stood near the back wall of the barn. Ruth Ann walked over when the last pen cleared and handed him the tally. 47 head at $25,100 flat. He looked at the number. Then he put the paper in his shirt pocket. Warren Tolliver was waiting by the alley gate with his hat in both hands. He said nothing about scrub cows. He asked, quietly, whether she had bulls for sale in the spring.
His own herd had gone into the fall with 62 cows. He had 43 calves to show for it. 4 weeks after the Phillip sale, a pickup she did not recognize stopped at her gate on a Tuesday morning in late October of 2002. The driver left his engine running and walked up the drive in a canvas jacket with his hands tucked in his pockets. His name was Dale Holm, and he ran 320 acres down near Cottonwood, about 18 miles south. She had seen him at the elevator in town, but never spoken to him. He did not circle around it. He had lost 11 calves to the heat in August, he said, and his cows had come into fall in the worst shape he had seen in 30 years of running registered Angus. He had heard about her calf crop from a man at the grain elevator. He wanted to know whether she had bulls for sale in the spring or bred heifers out of her older cows. She told him she had 6 yearling bulls turning 2 by March, and 4 heifers she had not yet decided on. He nodded. He asked what she was asking. She named a number. He did not flinch. "Your father ran these same cattle," he said. It was not quite a question. "His father before him," she answered. "Back to the 1930s. Dale Holm looked out past the barn at the far hills, where the short grass had gone pale and thin with frost, but still stood unbroken to the skyline. He said he would call her in January, and then he walked back to his truck. Before December, she had taken calls from 7 ranches in the county. Dale Holm was not alone in having stood at a sale barn and understood, afterward, what a cow that keeps herself on hard ground through a bad summer is actually worth. What had it taken all of them so long to see? March of 2003 came in soft to the ranch south of Kadoka, and Ruth Ann Vollmer sat at the kitchen table with the leather book open under the lamp. The first calves of the year were on the ground in the calving lot, small and dark and standing within the hour. She turned to the front page of the book, where Otto Vollmer had written a single line in pencil in the winter of 1961. The year he took the herd from his own father. She had read it 1,000 times as a girl and understood only the words. Match the cow to the country, not the country to the cow. Below it, in the same careful pencil, he had listed the numbers of the 7 cows he kept that first spring, the ones that had raised a calf every year through the drought of the 50s on grass alone. Every cow in her lot that morning traced back through the book to one of those 7. Outside, the calves were rising to their feet in the pale light. The wind came in under the door and lifted the corner of a page beneath her hand. The country had not changed. Thin grass, short summers, the same wind off the Badlands. Her father had known this the way a man knows the road home in the dark. He had kept the 7 cows and put their numbers in pencil and never told a neighbor what he was doing. Ruth Ann Vollmer closed the leather book and set her hand flat on the cover. Match the cow to the country, not the country to the cow. Have you ever kept doing something everyone told you to quit, long after the smart money said stop? Tell us in the comments, and tell us where you are watching from. Subscribe, and we will be back next week with another story from the quiet corners of American farming.